What's up, guys? It's me, Christian Rodriguez, and today I want to talk about, like being able to think long term, right? Because as a guy, right, if you're a guy, most likely this is who I'm targeting is men. You're watching this, right? Men start off with no value. Men start off with absolutely nothing going on, right? They get to their 20s, they're likely broke, they're likely frail, they have no muscle mass, they likely have no confidence, no skills whatsoever, right? And the thing is, all this stuff takes time and years to build, right? Especially if you choose entrepreneurship, you're likely going to go through a shit ton of failures before you start getting traction towards it. Unless you're Bill Gates and you get it the first time, then that's fucking amazing. But that's not the case for everyone. But I'm going to keep going with this. So, yeah, like men in their 20s have to build themselves, and you have to be able to think long term on like who you want to be or the goals you want to achieve, right? And the thing is that in order when you start thinking long term, it's going to affect your decision making, right? You're more likely going to go to the gym 5 days a week. You're more likely going to cut off alcohol. You're more likely going to maybe read more or, you know, master a skill like sales, right? You're going to maybe go through sales. You're going to be like, damn, I suck at sales. But then you're going to realize, but I'm supposed to suck at it because it takes time to master a skill like sales. And you're more likely going to do it on and off. Maybe even invest in training or invest in courses, right? And you're going to maybe try go to seminars, stuff like that. Educate yourself, get mentorship, because you're going to see it as an investment, something you can learn, and it takes years to master, right? Because you want to focus on mastery. And the thing is, when you're thinking long term, you just your decision making just gets so far better. It gets a lot better. You start thinking of yourself 5 to 10 years from now, instead of just thinking of yourself next week, right? You're not thinking about the weekend. You're thinking about 5 to 10 years from now. You might even work 7 days a week just because you want to get there faster, right? And the thing is, you you can't just get everything overnight. Like, things don't just happen that way. I know people talk about an overnight success, right? People talk about, like, I'll give you an example, like Grant Cardone, right? He talked about how people called him an overnight success, but he didn't see it that way, right? And in the 10x rule, I think he talked about it. He said he's posted like tens of thousands of pieces of content on social media before he blew up. He literally cold called, reached out to hundreds, thousands of businesses before he started getting real traction with his business. And he was struggling, broke, right? Even after he was in his car sales job, he was like basically struggling and broke. After he quit his job to start his business, he was making far less money than he was making in his job, and he was literally on the verge of quitting, right? But he kept going. And of course, not everyone's going to be an entrepreneur, but this goes with just about everything. Like, it takes time. It takes time to build. It takes time to get better, right? Going through business failures, for example, right? It literally sucks. It's disheartening because it's basically data that you're deficient in a skill. So you have to develop that skill, right? Whether that's through a job or on your own, right? But it depends on the situation. But you have to be able to do things long term. Maybe you have to invest in certain things, right? I remember years ago, people would tell me that I had chicken legs, right? I had skinny legs, that I work out my upper body. And maybe they were true in some cases, right? But I would actually work out my legs. I would have leg day. I would go hard on leg day, but my legs just didn't grow, right? And I was wondering, oh, what's the issue? Maybe it's my genetics. People would say, oh, some people just have good genetics because you don't have good genetics. But, you know, I there was a time I injured my upper body doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I started working out legs every single day. and my legs grew significantly more after training them every day. And it was the same thing with, then I started training Muay Thai, and obviously that trained them even more. And now I have muscular legs, right? Something that I would have never imagined 6, 7 years ago. And that's an example of just being able to think long term, right? Maybe what you need is more volume, right? Same thing with getting better at sales. You probably need more volume. And obviously, not always, because I think you have to work on the skill of sales, but then you need to, whatever method of sales you use that works with you, you probably need more volume with it to be confident and be better with it, right? And that's the thing about thinking long term. Things take time to build. You have to be patient with it. That's why I always vouch for, oh, I don't have my notebook on me now, but I always have a notebook and I write down my goals 2 times a day, once in the morning, once at night before I go to bed. And that's all I do. Sometimes I do it a third time, but most of the time it's just twice a day, right? And that's just to remind me of where I'm going, right? Who I want to become, where I want to be years down the line. And that it kind of gives me a compass, it gives me a direction on where to go, right? And I've talked about how men need a mission, and being able to think long term on like who you want to be, where you want to be, the type of lifestyle you want to live. It's a lot easier to do it when you're focusing on it, when you're writing it down daily. And obviously, I don't like to talk about my goals because I've talked about this in previous videos, because what if you listen to Grant Cardone, right, in the 10x rule, he talks about how you need to make it ambitious goals that are impossible for the current you, for your current self. And if you show people your unrealistic goals, people will try to shoot it down. So I don't share my goals. I keep them myself. I write them down, and it helps me concentrate on what I'm working towards 10 years from now, right? And that's the thing, right? Things like kind of add up like compound interest, right? Money adds up like compound interest. Skills add up like compound interest, right? Like sales, for example. Even training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu adds up like compound interest. After a couple of months, 6 months of doing it, you're going to be probably 5% better, right? After a couple of years of doing it, you're going to be significantly better. You might not be Gordon Ryan, but you're going to be pretty good at jiu-jitsu. Like, you're not going to be bad at it. And it's going to take time to build. Each book that you read, if you read a book on sales and persuasion, or on success, or you're reading books on like different subjects, like that's going to take you more towards like your goals, you're going to understand those topics far better than the average person, because the average person does nothing, if we're going to be honest, right? The average person wings it in life. They may get a job, right? Because that's what they're supposed to do, right? They got a college degree and stuff like that, and they get married, they get a mortgage, but they don't really have like a real like vision, right? Maybe get a couple promotions here and there, but they're not thinking bigger than that, because they don't believe they can actually achieve it, right? And that's what I'm telling you here, is you have to be able to think long term, right? Things aren't just going to happen easily. Actually, whatever you're looking to achieve, if you set like hard, ambitious goals, I promise you they will be harder than you think they are. They will be harder, and it will take longer than you think it is, right? You're going to have to put in 10 times the effort than you thought you needed to put to actually get to where you want to be, right? And the hardest part is probably the setbacks, because when you're thinking long term, you're going to see setbacks as data. You're not going to see it as destiny, right? Like, oh, I'm not meant to do this because it didn't work, so I'm going to stop doing it. No, you're going to see it as, okay, it didn't work. I probably need to step back. I probably need to do something else and make myself better, so then I can pursue the same goal, right? You might find a different route to your same vision 10 years from now, right? And that's how you really have to see it, right? And I don't want to be this maybe I guess I am framing myself as his guru. Obviously, I'm just some guy working on building myself, right? And my self-improvement journey. and I'm working towards my own goals. This is so like the main reason why like I post these videos, I talk about this type of stuff. Yes, it's to help people on YouTube, but it's also so I can help myself as well. It's almost like I'm posting these videos so I can help educate myself as well, because I do think that I do see it as, you know, when you're working towards something ambitious, something in the long term, it can be lonely to work on this stuff by yourself, because most people won't resonate with you, right? And that's why I'm not talking to everyone, because the average person is just it's pointless. I don't bother. I don't bother talking about this stuff with the average person, right? So I just, yeah, I post this on YouTube because I'm targeting the people who actually might resonate with this, that might have a similar journey. Maybe they left their hometown. Maybe they have a vision going on, right? Maybe they consume they consume the similar content that I do, right? And they understand. Maybe they've gone through similar hardships, right? I'll be upfront with you guys. Like the AI automation agency didn't work the way I wanted it to. It just didn't work. It just I ended up not making the money that I needed to make from it, and it sucked, but it was a learning experience. It was a learning experience, and I was forced to have to do something else, right? Once I start doing it, I'm going to talk about it more often, right? And it's probably going to be some newer type of content that I'm going to talk about from there. But this is what gave me the idea to talk about long-term thinking, because, you know, the setback sucked, right? It was terrible and stressful. And, you know, it was, because I would understand if I failed because I just was being lazy and just didn't try. But it was literally because it just didn't work, right? There was something I didn't know, or there were skills that I was deficient in. And that's what I want you guys to think, that mastery takes a long time. It takes time to learn it. And I know Alex Hormozy says this. He says it's gonna take longer, and it's gonna be a lot harder than you think it is. So just be focused on that. Remember that it's gonna take longer. It's gonna be harder. So yeah, just expect it. Don't be surprised by setbacks, because it's gonna happen. Just treat it like water off the duck's back. And I'm gonna leave it at there before I just keep repeating myself. But I appreciate you guys for watching. And subscribe and take care.